First of all, I'd like to say good morning to everybody. Thank you for being here. We've got a couple of packets that I know it's information that all of you are going to be requesting under the public information. Some of you have already requested it, so I went ahead and put it together. So we're going to hand that out to you. If something happens to where we don't have enough, if there's two of you from a station, please just get one of them. We've got 20 copies of each. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. I am Sheriff Robert Holland with the Macon County Sheriff's Office. And for those of you that know me and have dealt with me for the last 12 or 13 years as sheriff, I don't have press conferences. The reason for that is we've always had an open door policy with our media, and so there's really no need. Because of the extent of this investigation and the interest by the media and the importance of us getting things out that are accurate, I decided to bring you all together here. You're an important role in what we do and providing information to the public, and I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your day and your interest in this investigation. Like I said, I don't normally hold press conferences, but today I realize why when I watch press conferences it's so important. When you see them start at the very beginning and you have the boring stuff at the beginning of all the people that they're going to thank. Today I understand why it's so important to thank those individuals. So I too would like to start out my press conference with identifying some people or some organizations to thank. First of all, I would like to thank First Sergeant Woods of the North Carolina State Highway Patrol, who's present here today. And the reason I'm thanking him is when I checked en route to the location, I immediately put a call into the Highway Patrol for additional assistance. And as always, they were very forthcoming and nearly beat me to the scene, several officers, and they were very instrumental in assisting us. Also want to thank the Apprentice Church of God and their community for their assistance where we were able to stage for during the event many of our students on school buses. Superintendent Chris Baldwin and his faculty, we would like to thank. He also is here today. Principal Tolly Bowles and his faculty at South Macon Elementary where this incident occurred. Principal Diane Cotton and her faculty at Union Academy, which is another school located near the South Macon Elementary. Deputy Director of the North Carolina Safer Schools, Mike Anderson, who is here present. He started calling me about 8 o'clock yesterday morning from Raleigh, and he stayed in contact with me all day yesterday. And at 3 o'clock this morning, he let me know that he was en route to come to Macon County to assist me as well. So we appreciate you being here today. Our District Attorney, Ashley Welch, as well as the Assistant District Attorney, Eric Bellis. We appreciate their assistance in this investigation as well. Of course, our Liaison County Commissioner, Ronnie Beal, who also stayed in contact with me yesterday and throughout the night, and also today. We appreciate his support and his being here. And of course our County Manager, Derek Rowland, who also is present, and we appreciate his support, who also stayed in contact. Both of these individuals didn't call to get information on what was going on. Their calls were simply to say, what resources do you need? What funding do you need? What can we do to help you? And we greatly appreciate that. The good thing is that that's year-round from those two individuals, and we appreciate that. I would be remiss without also including all of my staff, and I can tell you we utilized all of our staff yesterday, all of our patrol officers, investigators, command staff, you name it, everybody was utilized. I can't thank my officers and my agency enough for the professionalism, the integrity, and dedication that they showed. I appreciate all of them for what they've done and what they continue to do and will do for some time to come. I appreciate each and every one of you. That also includes our Macon County 911 dispatchers and all the things that they did. While I'm not going to mention a name at this time, I also would like to take a moment to recognize another person in here involved with this incident is one of our bus drivers, one of the county school's bus drivers, who was an employee of Dr. Baldwin, which later you will find will be one of those heroes in this event. And we appreciate all that she did for what she had taken part in. I'm going to apologize from this point forward to tell you that I have a cold, and so I have to drink water every once in a while. Basically what I'd like to do now is go through which I gave them all away, is a timeline of the events that occurred and give you a little bit of details. At 5:19, a 911 call from the Macon County Garage came to the 911 dispatch center where a bus driver had an incident at the school involving two individuals, one of them individuals being armed. At 1 minute later, at 5:20, a dispatcher then notified Macon County deputy and had them en route to South Macon Elementary School. It's about 12 miles from where that officer was at the time. In fact, he was driving by this facility when that call came in. 1 minute later, the first deputy arrived on scene at South Macon Elementary School. She had been in the area at that time due to an earlier incident. 6 minutes later, or 5 minutes later, the deputy that went by this location arrived at that location at South Macon Elementary School. At 5:27, the first deputy that had arrived on scene had made contact with suspect and notified dispatch that she was in contact with the suspect. Two individuals, identified them as one of them carrying a silver pistol, and advised the suspect was refusing to follow her commands. The next thing that we have is 5:40. So sometime between 5:27 and 5:40, a confrontation occurred between officers and these two individuals. At 5:40, the dispatcher was advised that the suspects were in custody and the deputy requested EMS due to a tasing incident. From 5:27 to 5:40, the male suspect was tased on at least 3 different occasions. He brandished that firearm at the first deputy, who was alone. During that brandishing of that weapon, the officer was able to hear clicking noise coming from the gun, and she immediately attempted to request assistance, but her radio was dead, her battery was dead on her handheld portable. So she retreated, taking cover in her patrol car, where she was able to let the other officers know what she had and make sure that they were en route. They then confronted those individuals. He refused to drop his weapon, at which time the decision was made to tase the individual. Struggle ensued, and again, like I said, he was tased a total of 3 times before they could get him handcuffed. He continued to fight and try to run away from the officers and kick. During the time that they were trying to arrest him, the female was then also tased because there was a weapon on the ground next to the suspect, the male suspect, and she was attempting to grab that handgun. And so they tased her and got her cuffed as well. Both individuals were then taken into custody, and as I said earlier, at 5:40, EMS was requested. At 5:49, South Macon Elementary was determined to be a crime scene, and therefore we secured and completed a lockdown was initiated. At 6:07, deputy requests on-call detective to come on scene. At 6:20, a deputy advises that a gun has been located on one of the buses at the scene. At 6:24, an investigation sergeant, Don Willis, is en route to the location of the school. And so from that time on is when we were in our lockdown. We had Prentice Church of God location set up. Me and the superintendent and also another member of his faculty determined that was the best location for us to go. The buses were removed from the school after being searched, They were en route to pick up their students. Once they picked up their students, they came to Prentice Church of God, where they remained until we were able to determine that the school's safe. During the time that we were at Prentice Church of God with the students, we did not allow anybody on the premises for the safety of all concerned, except for school faculty who were identified by school faculty and as well as the SRO assigned to that school. No parents were allowed onto the location. No children were permitted to leave the location. I'll be honest with you, that caused us a little bit of controversy. As you can imagine, not being allowed to pick up your child. Some people were not happy about that, and we understand. And some people were not happy that they weren't permitted to drop off their kids to us as well because they were late for work. But we made that decision, we stand by that decision, and if we had to do it all over again, we will do it exactly that way as well. As I've said, our priority was not, while we were concerned about what parents felt and were concerned about, our priority was not to ease their feelings and their minds, but the number one priority was the safety of those children. And we maintained that, and I can assure my community, I can assure you that their safety was top priority, and my officers and the faculty did an outstanding job making sure that happened. At 8:03, we were able to determine that the school was safe. It was no longer a crime scene, and we allowed the school to open up, at which time Dr. Baldwin and I then released the school buses to go back to the school. There was a lot of kids that weren't going to be at school that day and had already gone back home, and so the school system determined that it was the opportunity had arose that we needed to go ahead and cancel school for the rest of the day for that school. And the kids that were there at the school had school until their parents could come and pick them up, and the faculty stayed with them until the last student was picked up. We talked about the bus driver, and I just want to make sure that everybody understands that we are proud of her and the actions that she took, because the actions that she took when she was confronted by these two individuals and actually pointed the firearm at her, her actions, what she did in her vehicle driving toward them, they were heading toward her bus again, and they went the other way, which changed the events that occurred from that point forward. And I believe, and my staff believes, that created a great difference in what could have happened. Subsequently, I left out the fact that I believe that a gun was also located on the school bus that those individuals were heading back to, that bus driver who was in her personal vehicle determined that it was in everybody's best interest for them not to get to that bus. She didn't know if they were going to steal the bus or what the situation was. It wasn't until after this was over, when she went to get on her bus, that in the front seat she located a pack, and within that pack was gun number 5. And the investigators took that into custody, and it was at that time that a complete search of the premises and every vehicle, every bus on the premises took place. And ultimately, one of the reasons why we decided to completely lock down the entire premises. The next thing we did is execute a search warrant at the suspect's residence. That took place yesterday evening, late afternoon, early evening. We were able to get search warrants signed by a Superior Court judge in another county. We were able to collect evidence at that location, several weapons and ammunition, and then went back to the detention center where interviews were conducted with both individuals. While I won't identify who gave statements, who didn't give statements, or what statements were said by who, I will give you a scenario of a couple of statements that were made that is very concerning to us, and we thought it was important that we let people know what was said. And I'll be honest with you, I'm gonna be very careful because we all know that this is a male and a female suspect, so I'm being very careful not to say he or she, because it would definitely identify statements. So, bear with me, but one of the statements that was made, was during the interview, it was asked, why were you there? And one of the, suspects stated that it was God's will and part of the matrix. And another question that was asked was, why did you kill the cat? There was a stray cat that a lot of the children knew that had been there for several years. We found that cat in front of the bus in the parking lot where it was noticeably had been shot and killed. And basically they admitted to shooting and stabbing that cat because it was, I believe the words was flawed. Defective, it was defective. So then another statement that was made was wanted to understand why they were there and what their intent was, and what would have happened if the kids and the teachers showed up at school. And one of the individuals made the statement that it was God's will, and if it would have been God's will for us to shoot children and teachers, and the other suspect wanted the other suspect to do so, they would have proceeded to start shooting children and teachers. And we think it's important that we get that information out. We, as I said from the beginning, we had no idea, and still to 100% certainty have no idea why they were there. There's been discussions about the siphon hose and the container or the bucket. We made it clear we didn't know why they were there, and why somebody would be carrying the bucket and a siphon hose, who knows? And so we couldn't determine that, and we still really don't know the answer to that. Were they there to get gas for a vehicle? We have no idea. There's no way you could have put gas in the bucket. The bucket was nearly torn in half. And so we will continue to investigate. We will continue to follow up on leads and all information that we get. I do have a couple of photographs to show you. This here, the first picture, is the backpack or the pack that was on the school bus in the front seat. And as you can see, you may not understand what that is, but that is the firearm visibly being able to be seen. Is there a way to change that? If you'll go to the next slide. That is the same firearms. One of the suspects had 2 firearms in his belt in holsters. He had a 3rd firearm, which I have here, and this is actually the firearm that he was holding in his hand and held at my officer, pointed at my officer, and was the sound of clicking was heard. This is that actual gun.
Can you hold that up one more time?
Yes.
Can you go through that again?
Hold on 1 second. As you can see, you've got multiple weapons, and the 4th gun, he had 2 on him in holsters. He had a 3rd gun in his hand, which is the one I just showed you, and then the 4th gun was the Derringer that was beside him, at which time the female suspect was trying to get, at which time she was tased. And here is the bucket that I talked about him having, and here is the siphon hose. This individual, both of these individuals lived in the vicinity of the school. This map right here, this is the school, and right here is the suspect's residence. So you can see the close proximity of the house of where the search warrant was executed. The search warrant was executed on this house. Right here is the parents' house, which is right down the street from him. This is where that morning after he was arrested, there's a domestic violence order banning him from that residence, and his vehicle was found in the driveway at daylight at that residence where he should not have been. At this time, we have no idea why he was there, but you'll notice that some of the charges are related to the violation of that domestic violence order. Over here is another map aerial view. Right here, in fact, right here, if I'm not mistaken, that's about where the bus actually was located. And there's a school bus there presently in this aerial view. About 4 cars up is the location of where the cat was found dead, shot, deceased. And then after the bus driver had veered her car at the suspects after having a gun pointed at her, they then turned away from the bus and ran this way and went around the school. It's somewhere in this area by the ball field, and then by this fence is the actual location of where the confrontation took place between the first deputy and them. And they were, at the time that she confronted them, she come around this corner and they were actually walking back to where they had come from. Why they were coming back, we have no idea. The only thing we can speculate is they may realize that they had forgotten the other gun on this school bus. That's also where, when the other officers arrived, the confrontation took place amongst all the officers with them, and they were both taken into custody. Following this press conference, I'm not going to make any more statements other than I'll answer a few questions in here today. What we're going to be doing is working on this case to build a prosecution, a good case for the prosecution. We don't want to do anything to hinder that investigation or that prosecution. And so that's another reason why I have you all here today. I am going to give you an opportunity to ask some questions. I want you to understand, and I know you do, you all are professionals and this is your line of work, but I've got to be very careful with what I do answer, and I've got to make sure that I'm accurate in what I say. So I'm going to give everybody an opportunity to ask a couple of questions, and please make sure you allow others to ask questions. Ms. Kim from WLOS.
What can you tell us about their backgrounds? Neighbors were living in fear, they told us yesterday. They said that he had fired his gun off in the past, and I believe he told me even the night before that you all found him at the school. What is his history, and what have you learned so far about their connection to God's will that potentially these children could have been shot at?
This is an active investigation, and while I've openly said that law enforcement are familiar with both of these, I can honestly sit here and tell you I can't tell you that because I don't know all the details of their background by memory. All I can say is we do have a history with these individuals, and as far as firing of discharge of firearms, that happens all the time. There's nothing illegal about people discharging a firearm at their residence as long as they're doing it in a safe manner and proving that they're not doing it in a safe manner. There's no violation of law. You can shoot a gun 24 hours a day in our county. You can shoot a firearm as long as you're shooting that firearm in a safe manner.
You had mentioned to me they were up all night. Can you talk anything about that at all? Were they?
No, I can't discuss that. I don't know the details of that.
Sheriff, can you elaborate on the relationship between Audrey Parrish and Adam Conley?
Audrey Parrish and Adam Conley?
And you have warrants here that say she's under attempted to kill and murder Audrey Parrish.
Yeah, Audrey Parrish is one of my officers. She is the first responding deputy who he pointed the gun at, and he is charged with attempted first-degree murder of that deputy.
And the domestic order was against his father, it looks like?
Correct.
You said you believe drugs might have been involved. Were drugs actually found on either of them?
We did find some marijuana on them, and based on our experience as law enforcement officers, their actions and their demeanor and things that they said and did throughout the night at our facility, it's apparent that they were on some kind of substance.
Have they been longtime residents of Macon County?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have they been here for?
I couldn't answer that. I have no idea. I haven't even looked into that.
Could you talk a little, I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say thank you for doing a great job, and I just wanted to ask regarding the other schools in Macon County where what had happened in regards to were any of the other schools notified or the SROs?
All the SROs knew. As far as the other schools were handled, they were handled, worked, just as they would normally. And of course, all the SROs knew exactly what was going on. Of course, I can assure you that the tension with them and their security was high because we didn't really know exactly what was going on. We were pretty confident that these were the only two individuals that were involved, and we were really not concerned about additional suspects in additional schools.
Thank you.
What specifically did you find at the residence? I know you mentioned you found some weapons there.
Yes, and I think if you go to the next slide. I don't think I went through all the slides. Here's another shot of those firearms. This is actual, some of the items that were recovered from the search warrant of the residence. Multiple guns. Now this is not uncommon. I'm not anti-gun, and it's not uncommon for people to have these in their homes. We just make issue of this for the fact that you had an individual that is accused of being involved in this stuff, and these are the type of things, and it just shows what he had at his dispense. He could have easily utilized.
The two live together?
They did live together. It's my understanding that they both lived at that address. I think that's the last slide. Yeah, that's the last slide.
Sheriff,
How did the gun get on the bus? I'm sorry.
To be honest with you, we don't know. We believe it's their gun. We believe they were on the bus.
follow-up question. Did it appear to be stashed or just like accidentally?
It was just, all I can say is it was in plain view on the seat, of the front seat of the school bus. In plain view, not concealed.
Sheriff, you mentioned that some of the parents were a little upset with how the procedure was not being allowed to pick up or drop off children. Is that part of a standard lockdown procedure for Macon County?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And actually, all across the state, that's a common practice and encouraged practice. Yes, ma'am, Ms. King.
You touched on how close this could have been to something much worse. When you talked about that, I mean, I could even tell that the idea of this is just very daunting. Can you touch on that a little bit more? I mean, what can you tell us about their state of mind when they said these words, that if it was God's will to have those children killed or teachers killed, so be it? Tell me about that. What more can you say?
I mean, I can't really add anything to that other than a personal note. I can tell you that is a concern that all law enforcement probably carries, is their schools and their children within the school system, and a priority for many, and I hope all. And so what I can tell you is that yes, it's very concerning, and in speaking to my staff, it's been a real, I'm digging for words here to be accurate and trying to express my feelings, but the reality of what could have happened is very frightening to all of us, and we have had great discussions about that in the last 12 hours. It's not anything that we haven't been concerned about in the past. I've been an advocate for officers on school campuses, as many of you in here know, and as well as my staff definitely knows. And we are very blessed because this could have been a very much different outcome. And if not for the actions of one, that bus driver, and the actions of those officers, and so many different things, we could have had a very, very different scenario and a much different press conference today.
Is there anything you could say to the public as far as just knowing people in the community? You know, this can turn on a dime if this would later in the morning to do any kind of preventative measures when you know someone in the community that might be like this at risk.
Well, that goes without saying. I mean, I mean, I can only speak for my community. People frequently call us and give information anonymously or give information openly, not for fear of any retaliation or anything. The reality of it is we have laws and guidelines that we have to go by. And if we respond to a residence that there's shooting going on tonight, that's not uncommon. I don't think you'll find any community where that does not happen. It happens. And just because there's shooting going on doesn't mean there's a violation in the law. But it's important for people to give that information and let us know if they are concerned. And I can assure you that any law enforcement agency, if they find a concern, they're going to do what they can to resolve that issue.
Right, you can touch on it, Sheriff. It's one thing to be armed, but did they give any indication of why they were so heavily armed?
No. As I said, this investigation continues. There'll be additional interviews conducted, and I've not been able to go into detail of the full interviews, but we'll actively continue to investigate this crime and work toward a successful prosecution.
The bus driver was in her personal car. Was she leaving work or coming to work?
She had arrived at work. She was prepared to get on the bus and drive. In fact, I believe she even already cranked her bus. She actually, I believe, cranked her bus and went into the school, which is really not her responsibility, but because she cares, she actually goes and walks through the school and just checks on everything, and then goes back out, gets on her school bus, and goes and begins her day picking up students. She was not, basically she was, and I'm not going to say exactly what she said because I can't remember, but in a nutshell, she was not going to allow those individuals to get back on her bus, and she didn't. And as I said earlier, she's a hero in this event because her actions changed the course of the events that took place from that point forward.
So I'm sorry, is it like a bus lot where she cranks her bus?
It's a school parking. It's a school parking lot, and it's where they park many of the school buses at night, and then they come there in the morning. And as you can see in the picture, there's multiple school buses there parked, and that's where they park them at night.
Can you estimate how many people were in the building at the time when all this kind of started amping up, starting at like 5:19?
Within the building, Dr. Baldwin, I think I'm correct, there was nobody in the building at the time that happened. Am I correct?
Just the bus driver's sister's custodian, the bus driver dropped her off actually.
The custodian, who was the bus driver's sister, came to the school together, and so the two of them were there, and that's it.
So no kids were on campus at the
Correct.
time?
And we've made, and I hope that you all will take the time to make sure you say that in your stories, because we have said that a lot, but we haven't heard it very much. So please say that.
One more question about the bus.
Thank God we don't have to be at school at 5:19 in the morning.
So I'm just trying to figure out the timeline here. So they arrived at the campus. Did they go on the bus before the bus driver cranked it up, or was it after she cranked it up? What do you think?
I don't know the answer to that exactly, so I won't be able to answer that.
I'm just trying to figure out if it was
remember.
unlocked or locked when they got on there. You know what I mean? Did they
I
leave them-
couldn't answer that.
I don't think the buses lock. I think you
Yeah,
just
that-
open
yeah.
the door and get on.
And then I would be speculating, so that's why I don't want to answer that question.
Do you know?
Mr. Baldwin, do you know?
Do you know, Mr. Baldwin? If the buses lock at night?
They did not lock.
Okay.
Do you still think that they might have slept on that front row there?
We're not really sure. When I said that yesterday, and that's what is that's why we hesitate to say anything until we have all the information, and the information that I had gotten from our officers was that we believed that something led us to believe that they had been sleeping on the bus or had been on the bus. Knowing what we know now, the chances of them actually sleeping were probably slim to none based on their current conditions. But we were confident they had been on the bus. Whether it was sleeping or not is a different story.
Do you know about, I don't know if you can release this, how long they've been kind of planning this? Was it premeditated, or you think it was like they just got?
That's part of the investigation,
Okay.
and we're not able to make any statements related to that.
Was there one of the two that was the leader of the plan that you can see so far?
Yeah, we're not able to make a statement as to that as well. Not trying to cut the two of you off, but is there anybody who hasn't spoken that would like to speak before the two of them ask the next question?
Just one-
Yes, sir.
Do you think they were responsible for the incident on Union School Road earlier that morning?
I believe there's a good possibility that those are the two individuals, yes. And that is also why you had a quick response time, because we remained in that area. An officer stayed in that area trying to, because we were unable to locate where somebody had called in somebody shooting out in the driveway. And several of the officers responded. In fact, all of them responded. They were unable to locate them. And then later is when it happened at the school. We also know now that that's also right next to their home. So it's a good possibility if it was them, they may have been in their house and the officers wouldn't have seen or heard anything.
Is there
Yes, ma'am.
a court date, and they're not out on bail, correct?
Their bond has been set at $1 million each, and in the packet that I gave you has a court date. I honestly can't remember what that court date
And that's
is.
open to the public? or-
Absolutely, open to the public. Yes, sir.
Apart from proximity, did they have any other connection to the school?
At this time, we have no reason to believe that they had any connection to the school, other than the fact that they live close by. Ms. King?
Could you just go over that domestic violence violation that you talked about again?
I don't know it by heart. It's in your packet. You have it.
It happened hours before, or what was that?
No, as I was saying in my statement, that that morning, when all this happened, we were able to locate his vehicle, which is near his home, but that vehicle was at his parents' house where he was prohibited from being.
When people watch tonight, what's the number one thing you want them to take away from their story?
That day and from any day is their safety was our number one priority. And I also want people to understand that there's reasons, that there's policies and procedures and things that go on during these events that are carefully thought out, not only in Macon County, but from across the state. I serve on the Safe Schools Task Force, appointed by Governor McCrory. Safe Schools Director, Deputy Director is here, and we actively are working on criteria and policies and procedures with agencies across the entire state of North Carolina, and that's our priority.
Are the bus drivers trained to deal with these kind of situations?
Dr. Baldwin?
With these type of situations, no, they're not trained to do these type of situations.
Do you think they'll be able to
that
get
is,
plans to
and
do?
well, and Dr. Baldwin, and I'm going to interrupt you. I apologize. It's ironic that this happened today or yesterday, because just the day before we were talking about having our meeting to do one of our live scenarios, and as part of that scenario, it includes bus drivers, your lunchroom ladies, your janitorial, your other people that work in the school system, not just your teachers and not just your law enforcement. And it was an hour later, actually, when Mike Anderson contacted me and wanted to know if we had set up our mock drill. And then the next day, this occurs. And while this wasn't a drill, we will learn by this. There's some things that we would do a little differently to make things easier, better, safer. But I wouldn't go back and change anything that we did. I would do things to make it even better than what we already did. Yes, ma'am.
Are both of the suspects talking?
I can't go into that.
I apologize if this is redundant. Can you elaborate on the Union School Road incident that happened prior to this one?
We received a 911 call or a report that there were 2 individuals shooting guns outside of a residence.
And when did that happen?
I don't know the exact time, but it was earlier in the evening.
So it was sometime Wednesday night into Thursday evening?
Sometime earlier that morning.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure of when it was. It was sometime within the hour or so before this event happened.
Okay.
And that's why the officer was still in the area. Or one of them, or 1 or 2 of them remained in the area. They all had been in the area.
And you guys are the sole investigators on this, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is he facing any, could he possibly face federal charges for being on a school campus with guns and
That
firearms?
is, as I said, this is an ongoing investigation, and we will meet with our district attorney's office to discuss the entire case, besides the preliminary case of what we have discussed and charges that have now been filed. But we will continue to meet with our district attorney. It's a team effort. All of these people will meet together and continue to discuss this investigation, and additional charges are possible. And if there's, I can assure you, any and all charges that are possible, we will be going after, whether that's state or federal, whatever. But that'll be a decision that is made between all of us. I can assure you from the sheriff's office point and my point, we're gonna do all we can to throw whatever we can at him.
To elaborate, are there any possible drug dealing charges? We heard from neighbors that these 2 might have had, something going on in that regard.
To be honest with you, based on the charges that are filed against them at this time, drug dealing is the least of their worries. I guess that is it. I appreciate everybody being here again. Did you have a question or did you just something?
No.
Anybody else like to say anything?
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being here today.
Packets, no, I don't know why we weren't getting one. Sheriff, I didn't get a packet. No.